Right, right, right. My jacket came in the mail today. Like somewhere in the house. Yeah, it's somewhere in the house. I was did you drive your car this morning? Your car.
No, I took the plug out. Why is that what you're asking?
No, the trunk was open.
Oh, I had to get my violin out of there. I left my
You didn't close the trunk?
like wide open.
Yeah, it was open.
Oh, whoops. Well, because I went in the house.
All sing together. Kol hanshama tehaleya, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama sanctuary, pure and holy, tried and true, and with thanksgiving, I'll be a living sanctuary for you.
The question always is, how do we greet each other on this day? It's not a holiday like any other. It stands in stark contrast to every other Jewish holiday celebration. If we were to imagine that all of our festival observances are about taking our energy and directing it outwards to God, then Yom Kippur is the opposite. It's about taking from God and folding deep inside of ourselves, inside of our souls. Today is a day when we are to acknowledge with the deepest part of ourselves that life so filled with questions, with mystery, so much is unknown, including our own existence. Will we be here next year? What will the world look like next year? What will the world look like in a month? As Bob Dylan once said, to each his own, it's all unknown. As usual, Bob Dylan is right. And so today, given this world of open questions, this time when we are dedicated to really submerging into the deepest part of our souls, to reflect on who we want to be and what the world might be by our own hands, we say Gemar Tov. Gemar Tov means may you finish well. May your fast be one of meaning and consequence. We're not focusing on what we don't have. It's really about focusing on what we can yet accomplish as individuals. And then also, if you look around the sanctuary with all of these folks you are sitting with, some of them you know well because you're related to them. You're also sitting with people, some of whom you've never met before. Guests, people who are visiting, friends. And all are welcome in this sanctuary, in this place where we strive to create an ambiance of prayer and circumspection for each one of us, each in our own place. That in the end we might rise together with a sense of connection and support for the community that we love so much. And so, if you will turn to your left or right in front of you and behind you and say, Gamar Tov, my name is, I'm glad to be praying with you today. Well, it sounds like you've met. One of our traditions, well, we have a couple of traditions to mention. The first one I'd like to mention is how happy I always am when our emeritus, Rabbi Robert Miller, is with us davening. And we are partners in the way this temple is loved and nurtured. And it means so much to have you here continuing in that tradition. It's Lisa Bamel's birthday today. So at least we can't sing happy birthday. Anyone else's birthday today? Another? So, okay. So, Hurley, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And when you were born, your parents said, uh-oh, inevitably. And here it is. So, we can't even say happy. We're going to say birthday. And at the Breakfast, I hope you have a huge cake. A huge cake that you bake, actually. But that's a whole different story. The other tradition I'd like to mention is that we put on our talesim, our talis together. It's a way of binding the community together just a little bit more and sharing that blessing of wrapping ourselves spiritually in the presence of the Holy One. And whether you're a devout believer, or whether you're someone that comes with great trepidation into a synagogue and you're not sure about this machzor, this prayer book, and how much it means to you, if anything, I would just like to reassure you that no matter where you're starting from, I hope that you will find space here to reach and embrace your own meditations, that you might conclude this Yom Kippur with a greater sense of wholeness and purpose and peace. So if you are wearing a talit, would you please rise? Ribono Shalom, Creator of the universe, this Yom Kippur day is filled with serious purpose, with meditation and prayer, perhaps even a bit of fear, because we understand that we truly don't know what the year will bring. So we can only say to you and remind ourselves is what we bring to the world, what we bring with an open heart and a willingness to make peace, a willingness to listen, to grant forgiveness, to be forgiven. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshana b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lihitatef b'tzitzit. Please turn to page 303.
Yitkata, Yitkata, Shmei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach hirutei, ve'amlech malchutei, ve'chayechon v'yomechon, בחיי דכל בית ישראל. Bagalav is Bankari, the Emiru.
Amen.
Yehi Shemei Rabba Mevorach, Leolam Me'amaya, Yitbarach. Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Yitba'ar Vidramam Vidnasei, Vitadar Vitale Vitala, Shemei de Kudishah.
Barichu.
Le'ela ule'oila, min kol berchata v'shirata.
Tush bechata v'nechemata.
Da'amira be'alma v'yimeru.
Amen. Please rise.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Please turn to page 19 of the supplement to follow along. Hello, sun in my face. Hello, you who make the morning and spread it over the fields and into the faces of the tulips and the nodding morning glories and into the windows of even the miserable and crotchety. Best preacher that ever was, dear star, that just happens to be where you are in the universe, to keep us from ever darkness, to ease us with warm touching, to hold us in the great hands of light. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Watch now how I start the day in happiness, in kindness. The morning wind forever blows. The poem of creation is uninterrupted, but few are the ears that hear it.
Ve'al me'orei or shasita yefaru chasela, Baruch ata Adonai,
Shmo.
Yotzer HaMe'orot.
Amen. Page 305.
Ahava Rabbah, afternoon. Adonai Eloheinu, Ahava Rabbah, afternoon.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. The bottom of 306. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'adecha v'hayu advarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavcha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvlechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha uv'kshartam le'ot hayadecha v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uv'isharecha Leman tizkeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim leloechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim.
Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem emet. We continue on page 308.
Mi
kamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, Norah tehilot osef eleh.
Shira chadasha, shibechu ge'ulim l'shimcha asfat hayam, yachad kulam, odu v'him lechu ve'amru,
Adonai imloch le'olam va'ed.
Sur Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, uvtechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu Adonai tzivahot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
On page 309, we continue with the Amidah. If you'll please rise.
Adonai
אתה Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor VaHanara, El Elyon,
Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher, Chasdei Avot V'Imachot, U'Mevii Geula Lifnei B'neihem,
למען שמו באהבה זוכרנו לחיים מלך חפץ בחיים וכותבנו בספר החיים למענך אלוהים חיים
Melech Hozer,
ומושיע ומגן
Baruch atah Adonai,
ברוך שמו
Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah,
אמן
Atah Gibor, Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei HaKol atah,
רב להושיע מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו משני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך מלך ממית ומחייב ומצמיח ישועה מי כמוך ברחמים זוכר יצוריו לחיים ברחמים ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל
Baruch atah Adonai,
שמו
Mechayei HaKol.
אמן ונתן תוקף קדושת היום כי הוא נורא והיום ובוא תנסה מלכותך ויכון בחסד כיסאך ותשב עליו באמת.
Rosh Hashanah yikatevun, yikatevun,
וביום צום כיפור יחתמון, יחתמון. כמה יעבורון וכמה יברעון, מי יחיה ומי ימות, מי וקיצו ומי לא וקיצו. בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון. בשמיים, מי בחרב ומי בחיה, מי ברעב ומי בצמא. בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, יכתבון. מי ברש ומי במגפה, מי בחניקה ומי בסקילה, מי ינוח ומי ינוע, מי ישקיט ומי יטורף. בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, יכתבון. מי ישלב ומי יתייסר, מי יעני ומי יעשיר, מי יושפל ומי ירום. בראש השנה יכתבון, יכתבון, וביום צום כיפור יכתבון, יכתבון.
Nikadesh, Nikadesh, Nikadesh et Shimcha b'olam, Nikadesh et Shimcha b'olam, Kishem shemakdishim oto lishmei maharom, kakatuv al yad neviyecha, Vikara ze el ze vigamar.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech ol haaretz, Kevodo.
Adir, Adirenu, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonai, Adonenu, Madir, Madir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz,
Baruch Kevod Adonai Mimkomo.
Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu, vehu Yashmienu, vehu Yashmienu, verachama lekol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem,
Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion,
Ledor vador.
Hallelujah.
mishpat, ha'el hakadosh nikdash b'tzedakah. Baruch atah Adonai, HaMelech HaKadosh.
Amen. Please be seated. We continue silently.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveraha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveraha. Sefer Chaim, Beracha v'Shalom, Ufarnasa Tova. B'Sefer Chaim, Beracha v'Shalom, Ufarnasa Tova. Nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha. Nizacher v'nikatev lefanecha. Anachnu b'chol ha'amcha Beit Yisrael l'chaim tovim u'lishalom. Baruch atah Adonai, Osei HaShalom.
Probably one of the first presidents to ever bring a show and tell as part of my address, but it does signify something. So, hello. My name is Abby Shapiro, and I am pleased to be serving TBA as your new president. I look forward to getting to know you over the next 2 years. I have been involved in Temple life and leadership since my youngest son, Andrew, was in the preschool in the fall of 1998. My husband, Jay, and I instantly felt a connection to the clergy and the other young families that we met through the preschool. 18 years later, many of those families are still our close friends, and Andrew's too. We celebrated both Robbie and Andrew's bar mitzvahs here, and celebrated again when they graduated the Midrash Shah program in 12th grade. From preschool days and ever since, volunteering at our temple has felt comfortable and welcoming. I hoped, and still do, that my kids would see as they got older that giving of oneself, being involved, and helping others is the true meaning of Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. My sisters and I grew up at Knesset Israel, a large Reform temple in suburban Philadelphia. We attended religious school, became bat mitzvah, and were confirmed there. Being Jewish was central to the life of my entire family. I had no better example of commitment to Judaism than my parents. They showed me through personal involvement how to give to one's community. While not particularly involved in temple life, they were very active with Israel Bonds, Missions to Israel, the Philadelphia Federation, the CJP of Philly. It shouldn't be surprising that in such a family, I grew up knowing that I too would be involved. I just didn't think it would be at the temple. Well, here I am. I started my leadership journey with Sisterhood, first as a member, then as president. I served as a board member, and after a couple of years, John Bamel invited me to join the executive committee. I became increasingly more involved in the future of Temple Beth Avodah, attending more and more services, programs, and meetings. I continue to learn a tremendous amount about what it means to be part of a welcoming congregation. And now, whenever I'm not home, Jay's running joke is that I must be at a temple meeting. My family and friends questioned my decision to take on so much more additional responsibility. Abby, why are you doing all this? Are you crazy? You're running a business, taking care of Jay, Robbie, Andrew, and Ellie, our dog. Why are you adding this to your already stressful life? I never had a good answer, other than, I don't know, I like it, and my latest response, it's my hobby. But it's actually more than that. Temple life and leadership brings me a sense of true service to others. This, in turn, brings me a sense of purpose and balance. I actually have to work on my real balance every day as I close my eyes and I stand on one foot. In all seriousness, this concept of balance became more pronounced to me this summer when Jay and I traveled to the deserts and Grand Canyon in Utah. The beauty of the landscape was breathtaking. Everywhere we hiked, there were natural and man-made rock formations called cairns. This is a cairn. A cairn is a mound of stones erected as a marker or a stone monument. These natural wonders have remained standing, strong, and in perfect balance, some for thousands of years, even though some of them looked as though they would topple over. This concept of balance and making a place resonated with me as I started thinking about the high holidays, the new year, and my presidency. Temple Beth Avodah is our Jewish home, our marker, our monument. We want and we choose to rely on this place as a monument or building that is strong and permanent, inside and out. TBA should be a part of our own balanced lives. As a spiritual home, it should be there and ready for us and our families, whether it's in a time of joyous simcha or sadness. Our community at TBA is here to support all of us. For my family, this temple community came to our rescue when our lives were shaken by a fire that burnt our home down in 2009. When so much else felt dark and insecure, TBA was a source of comfort and help. We were able to move forward because our temple helped us achieve our bearings again. We found our balance here. TBA's last strategic plan called for us to make a change in our governance structure. The governance committee, led by Neil Jacobs, met for almost a year and were charged with finding a way to condense the board of directors from 80-plus people to a working board of 25. In June, we concluded the first year of our new structure and met with members of the board to gain their feedback and assessment. The feeling was overwhelmingly positive, and the change allowed for each person to have played a role in policy and temple decision-making. We created 6 oversight committees, which streamlined the operations and programming all of our temple life. These committees offer an opportunity for all members to be involved, not just our board. We celebrated our 50th year with 5 major events that brought in our youngest students and our founding members. We were able to connect with almost everyone. The Torah Project, when we scribed and created a new Torah, remains one of the most cherished experiences. I can honestly say one of my most memorable life moments was watching 600 people parade our new Torah into this very sanctuary. This spring, we undertook a small but successful Imagine TBA fundraising campaign that raised over $650,000. The campaign focused on 2 distinct immediate needs: technology and infrastructure upgrades and the Rabbi Lisa Idison Boston-Haifa Exchange Program. You will pleasantly be surprised to be able to use your smartphones, iPads, and laptops without leaving the building or trying to find a spot that connects. Our children will be utilizing new technology in their school curriculum, finally catching up to their public and private school learning styles. Additionally, the funds will sustain the Boston-Haifa Student Exchange Program for approximately the next 6 years. Just speak with any one of the students who have participated, and you will see the clear impact this program has made. The success of these connections, the enthusiasm and involvement of our students meant we didn't have a choice but to continue to sustain this program. What's next, and why should I continue to do this work? We have a strong leadership team who are ready to chart the course for the future. We are fortunate to have this place, this community, our Karen. But look around. Other congregations are starting to falter. Membership is declining and buildings are empty. We need to prepare for TBA's future, where we want to go and how we envision ourselves. We cannot sit on our laurels. Status quo thinking is not okay. Being behind the curve is not just bothersome, it is lethal. We need to ask ourselves hard questions about our due structure, be creative about income generation, and possible collaboration in the community. In the course of the next 2 years, my goal is to have the board and any interested congregants involved in the conversations, ask the questions, create a new strategic plan, and to continue to chart the course for the future of TBA. Temple Beth Avodah is on a great path. We are in balance. We are strong. Our Karen is always growing. Come add to it. Bring yourself in and bring the temple new strength. Greater new strength and even greater balance, and you will receive even more in return. I urge you all to try something new here at TBA. Set a goal. Come to Shabbat services once a month. Try working on a committee. It's worth your time and energy. And I promise I won't ask why you spend time here when your life is so busy. On behalf of Jay, Robbie, Andrew, and I want to wish you a very happy, balanced, and healthy new year and an easy fast.
Neglected to remind you that whenever I say please rise, that implicit in that, in parentheses afterwards, is as you are able. So that if standing is uncomfortable for you, if it hurts, then not only do we ask you not to stand, but it would be a shanda, it would be a bad thing, because you should not in any way have pain associated with even this toughest of holidays. You might not like standing, that's a whole different story, but if it hurts, please remain seated. And that goes for any issue always about health and observing Judaism. That at any point, if your health is even potentially endangered, then it's not okay. The tradition is never about sacrificing one's health. So, if you would please rise as you are able. We continue with the Vidui section of our service on page 324.
Eloheinu v'Elohe Avoteinu, tavo lefanecha, tefilateinu, ve'al v'titalam mitchinateinu, she'ein anachnu azefanim ukshei oref lomar lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohe Avoteinu tzadikim anachnu ve'al chatanu Aval anachnu chatanu avinu peshanu.
On 325 through 326, the section entitled Silent Confession. It is a well-written text for you to use to help direct your own hearts towards a sense of confession and atonement. If the text does not do that for you, then use this silent time for your own meditations and contemplation on the life that you have lived up to this point and the life you want to live from this moment forth. We continue silently. Ashamnu,
Ashamnu,
Bagadnu,
Bagadnu,
Gazalnu,
Gazalnu,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Dibarnu Dofi,
Ay la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai. Hevinu,
Evinu,
Vihirshanu,
Vihirshanu,
Zadnu,
Zadnu,
Hamasnu,
Hamasnu,
Tafalnu Shakir.
Tafalnu Shaker,
Ay la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai. Yatsnura,
Yatsnura,
Kizavnu,
Kizavnu,
Latsnu,
Latsnu,
Maradnu,
Maradnu,
Niatsnu.
Niatsnu,
Ya la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai. Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Avinu,
Avinu,
Pashanu,
Hashanu,
Sararnu,
Sararnu,
Kishinu Oref.
Kishinu Oref,
Ya la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai. Rashanu,
Rashanu,
Shichatnu,
Shihanu,
Tiavnu,
Tiavnu,
Ta'inu,
Ta'inu,
Titanu.
Titanu,
Ya la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai, ya la la lai lai lai. In the supplement on page 22. For the sin we committed against you through evading and avoiding because we could not face the truth, for our flight into hypocrisy and deception because we did not dare to speak it, for the facts we dissembled and all we glossed over, for the excuses we made.
For interfering with the souls of others and neglecting their needs, for shifting our responsibilities, for reproaches and recriminations,
For our foolishness, our folly and false standards, for seeing these things only in others, never in ourselves, for our complacency which blinds us, and our self-righteousness which lessens us,
for calculating kindness and measuring out pity, for charity that is cold and prayers without feeling, for withholding our love,
for the appeals that we ignored and the people who we refused, for the affection which died and our lives that became bitter, for the visions which faded, the ideals we neglected, and the opportunities we lost,
for the fear of change and renewal, for unbelief, for saying prayers aloud but refusing to listen, for being our own worst enemy.
We continue on page 330. Al chet shechanu lefanecha birchilut.
the sin we have committed against you by malicious gossip,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha begilui arayot.
the sin we have committed against you by sexual immorality,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha b'machal v'mishteh.
and the sin we have committed against you by gluttony,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha b'tzarut ayin.
the sin we have committed against you by narrow-mindedness,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha b'chachash v'chazav.
the sin we have committed against you by fraud and falsehood,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha b'sinat chinam.
the sin we have committed against you by hating without
Al
cause,
chet shechanu lefanecha b'intiyat garon.
the sin we have committed against you by our arrogance,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha ba'azut metzach.
the sin we have committed against you by our insolence,
V'al chet shechanu lefanecha b'kalut rosh.
the sin we have committed against you by our irreverence,
Al chet shechanu lefanecha b'vidui peh.
and the sin we have committed against you by our hypocrisy,
על חטא שכן לפניך בפלילות,
the sin we have committed against you by passing judgment on others,
ועל חטא שכן לפניך בנשך ובמרבית,
the sin we have committed against you by exploiting the weak,
על חטא שכן לפניך בחפת שוחד,
the sin we have committed against you by giving and taking bribes,
על חטא שכן לפניך ביצר הרע,
the sin we have committed against you by giving way to our hostile impulses,
ועל חטא שכן לפניך בריצת רגליים להרע,
the sin we have committed against you by running to do evil.
ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. ועל כולם אלוה סליחות, סלח לנו מחלנו, סלח לנו מחלנו, כפר לנו. Please be seated on page 336.
Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chuz v'rachem aleinu. Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chuz v'rachem aleinu.
V'kabel berachamim u'veratzon et tefillatenu, ki el shomrei tefillot v'tachanunim ata. Shema Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chuz v'rachem aleinu. Yalalai, everybody. Yalalai, yalalai,
The Torah portion that we'll read from in just a minute was chosen because it really voices a fundamental truth about our tradition that is sometimes obscured. And that basic and fundamental truth is that we are one people called upon regardless of our social status, our economic status. The fact is, each one of us is called, equally challenged to step up and embrace the fact that we are God's servants. There is work that must be done, and we are the ones that must do it. The Torah portion begins, Atem nitzavim kulchem. All of you are called to receive Torah, every single one of you. In fact, when the rabbis would read this Torah portion and study it, they would sometimes talk about how envious they were. That everybody was there, the poorest, simplest person got to be in that moment. A moment all they can do is dream about and pray about. But they were there. But the fact is, when it comes to our place in the world, we are here. We are all present. We carry this burden of responsibility together. And when it says in our Torah portion, when God says, I give you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life. Not just the obvious point. It's better to be around and breathing. It's more than that. Choose life not just for yourself. It's not for your own well-being. Choose life means that we engage in a process that exalts life for all people. That's why the Yiddish expression is that it's hard to be a Jew. There's no day off. There's no time off. There's so much going on. There is no vacation from that reality. Yom Kippur is especially the day where we redefine what we're meant to do. We're not all meant to do the same thing. What we are meant to do, without question, is together, each in our own way, to do something. Every one of us. We are called together. We work together. We seek peace together. We choose life. Our service continues on page 300. We continue on page 338. I would like to invite to the Bima our ark openers, Efat Newton and Beverly Marcus. I'd also like to invite our Torah carriers, Brian Yaffe, Julius Gordon, Arthur Cantor, and Barry Solkoff. And I'd also like to invite our Torah readers for today, Hannah Kim, Sarah Kim, Harrison Scheinkoff, Gabe Finkelstein, and Rachel Glickman. If you would all please join us on the Bima. And if everyone would please rise.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakadsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakadsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakadsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehakadsho.
The Eternal One, the Eternal God, is merciful and gracious, endlessly patient, loving and true, showing mercy to thousands, forgiving iniquity, transgression, and sin, and granting pardon.
Adonai, Adonai, El Rahum Vechanun Adonai, 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 El Rahum Vechanun Adonai, Erech Apayim V'Rav Chesed Ve'emet Adonai, Notzer Chesed
Please read with me on page 339, Avinu Malkeinu. Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned before you. Avinu Malkeinu, bring us back to you in full repentance. Avinu Malkeinu, forgive and pardon all our misdeeds. Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and on our children. Avinu Malkeinu, make an end to sickness, war, and famine. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for blessing in the book of life. Avinu Malkeinu, let the new year be a good year for us. Avinu Malkeinu, help us to exalt your name in the world. Avinu Malkeinu, in your mercy, accept our prayer. Avinu Malkeinu, be gracious and answer us, for we have little merit. Treat us generously and with kindness, and be our help. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Vanenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, ve'oshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Avinu
Avinu
Malkeinu,
Malkeinu,
Avinu Malkeinu,
Vanenu Vanenu, Ki ein banu masim.
Ki
Mitzion
Tetzei Torah, Ki Mitzion Tetzei Torah, Udevar Adonai miYerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'Kedushato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh v'norah, Shema. Taurus, please face the aisle. L'Adonai iti, U'neromema Shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai ha'gedula, v'ha'gevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach, v'ha'od. Ki chol b'shamayim
Everybody follow who you want. You can do that too, just come
Ki
back.
chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, lecha Adonai ha'malachah, v'avid na'aseh lechol rosh. V'chamayim yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam umelo. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam umelo.
Yismechu hashamayim, da 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 da, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da. Yiram hayam, yiram hayam, yiram hayam umelo. 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 Ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da, ya da 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 da,
It's our tradition when one of your relatives is reading from Torah that you stand while that person is chanting. It's a tradition that Rabbi Miller turned us on to, and we've been using ever since. And so our first reader, Hannah Kim, if you'll please come up. And for our first Aliyah, Yamdu Ele Bidorot Shalosha. So those of you for the first Aliyah, if there are 3 generations of you, would you please join us? 3 generations of Beth Avodah members. If you are part of that group, please come up and join us for the first Aliyah. Okay, now let's take your talis and touch your bed again, which would be right there. Good. You can send representatives if you like. Come on up. Come fill in this way, please. Very distinguished group of people we have here. Come on in this way. Anyone move a little bit more this way? We got room, I promise. Just keep coming in. We got room over here. Excellent. All right, everybody. Are you ready? From the top. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Atem nitzavim hayom kulechem lifnei Adonai Elohechem rashechem shivtechem ziknechem veshoterechem kol ish Yisrael tapechem neshechem וגרך אשר בקרב מחנך, מכותב עצך עד שואף ממך, לעוברך בברית אדוני אלוהיך ובעלתו אשר אדוני אלוהיך כורת עמך היום.
Shall we? Baruch atah Adonai. Amen. Your families represent so much for us. A sense of abundance and joy. A sense of connection. The idea that we truly span generations is indicative of the way the heart of this congregation beats. And you are the spirit in that heart. That you are here continuing a legacy. And our fondest, deepest hope that from these three we continue to count as our temple grows and continues to flourish. May your families continue to do the same with us here. Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Sarah Kim is our next reader. I guess Pam's got to stand up again. Ya'amdu elesheb behanhagata bet knesset shniyim. The honor of the second aliyah goes to anyone that is currently on the board of directors at Temple Beth Avodah or who served on the board of Temple Beth Avodah. So whether you are now or have been on our board, please come up to the bima. With 80 people, there should be, everyone should be up there. So you take your towels and touch where you're going to start reading, which would be, we got it. Excellent. It's nice to have you here. The microphone is so funny. I didn't even talk about that. Hey, Rick. Come on back up. You're on a roll, man. Just keep it going. Feeling this way, guys? Keep moving this way. Got plenty of room over here. Okay. We also have generations of leadership, which is a very special thing to witness. So is everybody ready? From the top, 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai. Amen.
למען הקימותיך היום לא לעם, והוא יהיה לך לאלוהים כאשר דיבר לך, וכאשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק וליעקב, ולא ייתכם לבדכם, אנוכי כורת את הברית הזאת ואת העלה הזאת, כי את אשר ישנו פה עמנו עומד היום לפני אדוני אלוהים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten atah. Amen. We can't do what we do without you, without your dedication, without your commitment to this congregation, for all the time that you are putting in or have put in, for the way in which your love for what we do shows in your presence. We are endlessly thankful, and endlessly thankful to you for who you are and what you do here and everywhere else in the world. So thank you, and Gemar Tov to all of you. That's what happens next. Maybe go 3 for 3. I don't know. People have been to Israel. Don't even go anywhere. Yamdu ele she'alu la'eretz Yisrael shlishim. So anyone in the congregation that has gone on an Israel trip with our temple, would you please come up to the bima? If you are a veteran of a temple trip to Israel. Guys, come fill in this way. Harrison Scheinkoff is our Torah reader. I invite Harrison's family to please stand as he lanes Torah. You'll take your tallis and touch right there. Excellent. All right, here they are. Good, man. Good to see you. Come on, the bus is leaving in 5 minutes. Come on, man. Come on in, guys. Just kind of fill in. Come over, move up this way so we can. That's right. How great how we fill up the bima with you. Okay, from the top, everybody. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu at Adonai Ambarach. Baruch Adonai Ambarach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Ambarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten atah. Amen.
Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzavecha hayom lo niflet hi mimecha velo rechoka hi lo vashamayim hi lemor mi'ale lanu hashamayma vayikache alanu v'yashmienu ota v'na'asena v'lo me'ever layam hi lemor mi'ale lanu hashamayma v'yikache alanu v'yashmienu ota v'na'asena ki karov elecha hadavar ma'od beficha uvilvavecha lasoto.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten atah. Amen. Looking in our group, we have at least one person who became Jewish while in Israel. But actually, it seems to be in a way, when we go to Israel for the first time, all of us become Jewish for the first time, whether we were born that or convert or just go with a Jewish group. Because there's something about being part of the Israel experience. It changes who we are. We understand our context and our connection in a brand new way. And so for the time that you spent in Israel, family trips, for our kids that have gone on the Boston-Haifa exchange, and all the different ways you've gotten to Israel and come home, we hope that you've brought with you an added sense of love, an added sense of the complexities of being a Jew and the complexities of embracing Israel in hard times and not so hard times. Your going to Israel and coming back also brings to this congregation an immeasurable sense of the presence of the state of Israel and what it means for us and to us. So for your dedication, your love of Israel, and your enjoyment of sharing that time together, it is an honor to have you on the bima for this aliyah. And I say, Gamar Tov. Have an easy and meaningful fast. Thank you for coming up. Gabe Finkelstein is our next reader. Ya'amdu el shechpat lehem revi'im. The honor of the fourth aliyah goes to anyone who is currently or has served on what we call the caring community, people that have dedicated a part of their lives to bringing to those in need, whether through hot soup, the knit cap, a scarf, a phone call, a visit, in all of those ways. So if you'll please come up, those of you who are part of the caring community. Also, if you've in any way taken part, in good stuff with the temple, we invite you to join us on the bima. Matthew, a heavy burden that you carry. Yeah, well, it includes our dinners, in case you didn't think you were being called upon. Gabe's family, 3 generations standing. Thank you very much. Gabe, take your towels and touch where you're going to start. All right. Are you, Debbie, you back? Is everybody ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Amen.
Re'eh natahati lefanecha hayom et ha'chaim ve'et ha'tov ve'et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra asher anochi metzavecha hayom le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha Lalehed b'drahav ve'lishmor mitzvotav ve'hukutav u'mishpatav ve'hayita ve'ravita u'verachecha Adonai Elohecha ba'aretz asher ata v'shama u'arishtaha ve'im yifnei levavecha ve'lo tishma ve'nidachta ve'hishtahavita Elohim acherim va'arvatam.
With feeling. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai notenat. Amen. it is likely that if one were to walk around the Boston Living Center as it gets colder, would not be unusual to see folks wearing the hats that have been knit here and the scarves that have been made here. That our contribution in the world doesn't have to be with big, huge things. Sometimes it's the smallest things that make the hugest difference. And in the way that you have done and do this work, in this caring community, Debbie, that you helped create, it has really given us an endless number of possibilities for how we can better interact and give to the world part of what we are able to give. And we're hoping as time goes on that more folks will join you as we reconstitute this group, so it will become the strong and vital group that it has every reason to be. So thank you so much for the work that you do, and thank you for being on the Bima to honor all of those who do this caring work, and to you, Gmar Tov, an easy and meaningful fast. Rachel Glickman is our fifth Torah reader. Ask Rachel's family to please rise. Rachel, you shouldn't go too far. Bonnie, not you either. Ya'amdu ele sheyesh lahem studentim b'TBA preschool chamishim. If you are a graduate of the Beth Avodah preschool, would you please join us on the Bima? If you are the parents of a graduate, would you please join us? Here they come. Rachel, if you'll take your talis and touch where you're going to start reading. Wonderful. Wow. Keep on coming. Could I move up this way too? Move up this way too, everybody. Just kind of keep coming this way. Move up. Henry, you got you in the shul. All right. Come on in, folks. Come on in and fill in. Is your birthday today? Yesterday. I knew it was around now. Come on up, everybody. We got some space over here. Come on over. Heidi, lead the rest of that flock over here. We can do this. We can do this. Come on up. We can do this. Come on up. Absolutely. Wow. All right. Maybe your eyes are better than mine. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Baruch Hu et Adonai Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nataanu mikol hamim v'natanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Torah. Amen.
Higadati lahem hayom ki avod tovedun lo tarechun yamim al ha'adama asher ata over et hayarden lavo shama lerishta ha'idoti vachem hayom et hashamayim vet ha'aretz Hachaim v'hamavet natati lefanecha haberacha v'akelala uvacharta v'chaim lema'an tichye ata v'zarecha le'ahava et Adonai Elohecha lishmoa bekolo uledov kavo kihu hayecha ve'orech yamecha Lashevet al hadama asher nishba Adonai לאבותיך, לאברהם, ליצחק ויעקב, לתת להם.
Ready? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen. It's obvious, of course, that without you, we don't exist. Your involvement, your learning with us at the time you were young, really young, the fact that your parents put their trust in how and what we do down in that great basement, it's a machaya. Heidi Baker, over 19 years, has helped to create a dynamic and Jewishly alive place, and we are thrilled about that. One of the things we've always hoped for is the children that went to our preschool would grow up recognizing this space not as some eerie big room, but as a place where they've played, where they have sung together, where they have been picked up and worshiped. And we participate in all of that with you and with them. And it has been, for us, and continues to be, the greatest of blessings to have your trust in this ongoing educational process of molding our children into mensches that really want to make a difference because of what they've learned and where their roots are. So for all of you here, a Gamar Tov and easy fast, and thank you for trusting us with the most important sacred thing in your lives. Thanks, everybody. And this way, I feel like don't knock over the flowers. That would be a bummer. Zach, we'll see you later, huh? Yeah, good. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Big cake tonight, though, right? Okay. Hi, sweetie. Hi. They're getting big so quick. It's kind of terrifying, isn't it? Yamdu Hagba Galila. The honor of lifting the Torah and dressing the Torah goes to Tom and Liz Coleman.
And Nina, family.
And Nina's coming up as well, of course.
Or it could be that just a. So this is a heavy Torah.
And you'll sit right here. Take care of the. Please rise. Actually, let me wind it for you a little bit this way so the stickers don't show. Well. You're on. Vezot Torah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai miyad Moshe. Please be seated. I think it would be fair to say that the Haftarah continues on page 346, and Iris Sonnenschein will be our Haftarah reader. And because it's a little longer than a Torah portion, we're not asking our family to stand up. So good? Okay, just in case.
ברוך אתה, אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנביאים טובים ורצה ודבריהם הנאמרים באמת. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בתורה ובמשה עבדו ובישראל עמו ובנביאי האמת והצדק. קרא וגרון אל תחסוך, כשופר הרם קולך, והגד לעמי פשעם ולבית יעקב חטאותם. ואותי יום יום ידרושון, ודעת דרכייך פצון, כגוי אשר צדקה עשה, ומשפט אלוהיו לא עזב. ישאלוני משפטי צדק, קרבת אלוהים יחפצון. למה צמנו ולא ראית, עינינו נפשנו ולא תדע. הן ביום צומכם תמצאו חפץ, וכל עצביכם תנגוסו. הן לריב ומצה תצומו, ולהכות באגרוף רשע. לא תצומו כיום, להשמיע במרום קולכם. החזה יהיה צום אבחרהו, יום ענות אדם נפשו. הלחוף כהגמון ראשו, ושק ואפר יציע. הלזה תקרא צום, ויום רצון לאדוני. הלא זה צום אבחרהו, פתח חרצובות רשע, התר אגודות מותר, ושלח רצוצים חופשיים, וכל מותה תנתקו. הלא פרוס לרעב לחמך, ועניים מרודים תביא בית. כי תראה ערום וכיסיתו, ומבשרך לא תתעלם. אז יבקע כשחר אורך, וארוחתך מהרה תצמח. והלך לפניך צדקך, כבוד אדוני יאספך. אז תקרא ואדוני יענה, תשבע ויאמר הנני. אם תסיר מתוכך המותה, שלח אצבע ודבר אבן. ותפק לרעב נפשך, ונפש נענה תשביע. וזרח בחושך אורך, ואפלתך כצהריים. ונחך אדוני תמיד, והשביע בצחצחות נפשך, ועצמותיך יחליץ. והיית כגן רבה, וכמוצא מים, אשר לא יחזבו מימיו. ובנו ממך חורבות עולם, מוסדי דור ודור תקומם. וקורא לך גודר פרץ, משובב נתיבות לשבת. אם תשים משבת רגליך, עשות חפציך ביום קודשי. וקראת לשבת עונג, לקדוש אדוני מכובד. וכיבדתו מעשות דרכיך, ממצוא חפציך ודבר דבר. אז תתענג על אדוני, והכרתיך על במותי הארץ. ואכלתיך נחלת יעקב אביך, כי פי אדוני דיבר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן, האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום הכיפורים הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו למחילה ולסליחה ולכפרה לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך מוחל וסולח לעוונותינו ולעוונות עמו בית ישראל, ומעביר אשמותינו בכל שנה ושנה, מלך על כל הארץ, מקדש ישראל ויום הכיפורים.
Iris is one of our two B'nai Mitzvah tutors. Our other Tuti Shuki Sapir also is Israeli, and when you listen to some kids, they pick up their tutor's accents. So you can tell some kids have a more of a European Hebrew, those are hers, then some have a more Moroccan Hebrew, and that's Shuki. So it's interesting to hear how different students pick up different aspects of their tutor's accents. What they all pick up, all of our children who work with Iris and who work with Shuki, achieve a kind of knowledge, a kind of ability, and a kind of love of text and Torah that can only come from the heart of one who feels truly committed to the work, which, in case you didn't know, ain't always so easy. And they do it with such commitment and such neshama, with such soul. And we are just so blessed by that work, and can't thank you enough. I'd like to ask that our Barbara Seletsky and Bev Holzman, representing our knitters, you'll please come up to the bima for the as our ark openers for the conclusion of our Torah service. Would everyone please rise and turn to page 356. Tom, would you welcome this way?
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Kin Gav Shemo Levado, Hodo Haleretz, Vishamayim, Vayaren Keren Liamo, Tehila Lechol Chasidav, Yilifnei Yisrael Am Kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh, say shalom mimromav, huya say shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, ha'olam omed. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim,
על שלושה דברים העולם עומד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל גמילות חסדים. יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די די
חיים היא למחזיקים בה ותומכיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובו חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו Please be seated. "102 years ago, last night, a German Jew named Franz Rosenzweig had reached a profound conclusion. After much deep thought and soul-searching, this 26-year-old man from an assimilated Berlin Jewish family decided to convert to Christianity. He did not come to this choice in a haphazard way. A good friend of his, who had himself converted to Christianity from Judaism, convinced the brilliant and idiosyncratic Rosenzweig, a budding philosopher, that he must believe that Jesus was truly the Messiah if he wanted to be a part of the civilized world. His friend said, "Is it not clear that the world is redeemed, awaiting the second coming? And when that time would come, Jesus would come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom would have no end." Because he insisted on converting, as he said, as a Jew, not as a pagan, Rosenzweig dutifully attended services on the Day of Atonement, 1913, at a small Orthodox synagogue. In his mind, participation in Yom Kippur was a necessary preparatory step toward his Christian baptism. His biographer Nachum Glotzer writes, "Here was a Jew who did not wish to break off, but who deliberately aimed to go through Judaism to Christianity." When services were over that night, Rosenzweig returned to his home profoundly moved. So moved, in fact, that he changed his mind. Instead of converting to Christianity, he ended up becoming one of the most influential Jewish philosophers of the 20th century. Instead of going on to a career as a philosophy professor, he decided instead to work in Jewish education, essentially teaching adult education in the greater Berlin area. His life was tragically cut short when he contracted ALS. Towards the end of his life, he dictated his teachings to his wife, blinking every letter. As astonishing, as superhuman as that might sound, before that, when he was well, as he was writing what became his masterpiece called The Star of Redemption, his book of Jewish philosophy that remains, in my humble opinion, one of the hardest books to read ever written. But he wrote a lot of it by sending postcards home from the war front. He was in the war during World War I, and he was in the artillery. Now, where he found, in the midst of shelling and sitting, cowering in trenches waiting for the bombardment to end, other people were just kind of hanging on. He was writing postcards of some of the most intense, deepest philosophy that has ever been written in any language, German, English, Hebrew, any language. He was an astonishing man with an astonishing mind. And so we ask, what role did Yom Kippur play in his decision not only not to convert to Christianity, but in a real way to convert to Judaism, to begin to take it as his life's work, as his mission? Interestingly, we don't know. For all the things that Rosenzweig wrote about, he never really defined his experience in shul on that night. We just don't know what it was, what ignited that passion. But if we look around the sanctuary today, this sanctuary, that the people we're sitting with, if we think about what's in our own hearts today, if we think about our sense of weakness and brokenness, our sense of resilience and energy, if we think of our own yearning for connection and for meaning, then multiply that times every other person sitting in the sanctuary, maybe answering that question is just a bit superfluous. But one thing is clear, one thing Rosenzweig decided. In listening to his friend, he came to the conclusion that in fact the world had not yet been redeemed. The Jewish people ache for redemption. We yearn for redemption. But most emphatically, in Jewish life, in Jewish thinking, the world is not yet redeemed. The Jewish people live in the world of not yet. The universe of not yet is not orderly or stress-free. The world of not yet overflows with questions, but few answers. The world of not yet is all about process, not product. The world of not yet is all about anticipation. The world of not yet is all about patience and frustration. We've lived in this not yetness for 2,000 years. And for most of these 2 millennia, we lived almost exclusively in a diaspora, or as some have called it, the galut, in exile. Largely powerless, we were in every place the object of history. The Jewish people mostly lived without agency. We lived without allies in the diaspora. Our destiny was not in our own hands, but rather in the hands of and at the whim of others. As we struggled with our not yetness, the leaders of the Jewish people counseled patience. They would read Psalm 121, which says, Esa einai el harim me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri yavo me Adonai, Osei shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where will my help come from? My help will come from God, the maker of heaven and earth. And later on, the text reads, God will keep you from all harm. God will watch over your life. God will watch over your coming and going now and forevermore. It is beautiful poetry, and we honor our ancestors who seem to be so comforted by it. The truth is, they undoubtedly lifted their eyes to the mountains all the time, looking for, waiting for God's intervention, waiting for redemption. Our ancestors must have thought to themselves millions of times, Well, is God keeping us from all harm? Not yet. Is God watching over all of our lives? Well, not yet. But soon. But soon, they would say. Just not yet. In this ambiguous universe of not yet, of persecution and anxiety, our ancestors embraced the idea of the Messiah, a human being chosen by God to represent God's decision to end this condition of not yet. We could not resolve our own powerlessness, but God would send the agent of our liberation. Then we would be redeemed. The Messiah would do it. The Messiah would lead us. And in that moment, not yet would yield to the now, the Messianic kingdom. We can't effect our own liberation. Only God can do that. And then it says in the Elenu, and then on that day, by Yom Ahu, Yadonai Echad, on that day, God will be one and God's name will be one. This quietistic attitude, not surprisingly, lends itself to a deep sense of passivity. This must surely be God's will, our ancestors thought, that we live in a time and place of not yet. Our ancestors did not assume there was an explanation for our persecution and for our struggles. An explanation, frankly, did not matter. All that mattered is, when is the Messiah going to come? When will the world be redeemed? When will our exile be over? And until that time, it is not yet. And so what did our ancestors do? They lifted their eyes to the mountains, awaiting help, awaiting redemption. All my life, I have tried to respond to the not yet of our ancestors. I tried to have compassion for our forebears who struggled against enormous odds to keep body and soul intact. I try to understand this passivity. I try to understand how it was that perhaps it was the only choice they understood. And yet it's hard for me not to wonder how many lives were lost long before the Holocaust to this counsel to look for help from outside, from a distance, from afar, from the Messiah, from God. The birth of modernity in the 18th century collided with this passivity of Jewish not yetness. With such violence and force, we still feel the reverberations. As young Jews began to hear about the growth, the birth of the secular world, when they began to hear about the principles of nationalism, the diminished place of religion, the call of liberty, equality, fraternity, they questioned their parents. They said, why are we waiting? Why are we waiting for the Messiah? Why don't we act in the world to change this condition of exile? And their parents, horrified, would say, not yet. There's a midrash story about our ancestors standing at the shores of the sea. They are awaiting the word from Moses when they look in front of them and there's the ocean. They look in back of them and all they can see are the clouds rising from the wheels of the chariots of the Pharaoh's army coming to get them. And so they look at him, they look at the water, they look at the wheels of the chariots, and they freak out. They scream, they cry, they gavolt. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Moses, what are we going to do? And so Moses says, I don't know. And Moses starts to pray. Please, God, please, God, help me out. Please, God, do something. God, please, make something happen. Please, I don't know what to do. Please. Until finally, God interrupts Moses' prayer. And God says, Ma titzakalai. What are you yelling at me for? You know, Moses, there's a time for prayer. There's a time for this kind of devotion. But Moses, there's only one thing you need to do right now. You go to the children of Israel and you say to them, Chevre, it's time to start walking. It's time to start walking. The message of modernity. This is the new interpretation of not yetness. Harold Kushner describes it in his newest book, 9 Essential Things I've Learned About Life. He writes, and I quote, "A theology of not yet calls on us to see all that is wrong with the world as it is now, but refuse to accept that it has to be this way forever. There are forces striving to make the world a better place, and I see those forces as the embodiments of God's will. And as trite as it might sound, we, the Jewish people, are charged with the work of making the world a better place. Are all the world's hungry children fed? Not yet. Has the scourge of racism finally been eliminated? Not yet. Is the Middle East a place of peace? Not yet. That's our theology of not yet today. And in that case, it's time to start walking. An awareness of the gap between who we are and who we are called to be must be coupled with an awareness of the chasm between what the world is and what it is intended to be. Judaism dreams of a world in which human dignity is real and the presence of God is manifest. And yet human dignity is trodden and trampled upon in countless ways in every corner of the world, and God often seems hidden, absent, even non-existent. Consciousness of these gaps gives rise, or ought to give rise, to a sacred discontent with the status quo. We strive to become better, kinder, holier selves, and we yearn for and work for a better, kinder, more just and decent world. The world is not yet as it could be, nor yet as God intends it to be. And we, too, are not yet who we could be. We who are summoned by God to become. There is still work to be done, commitments to fulfill, a road to travel, a hope that will not die. This commitment to an ethos of not yet is central to Judaism's vision of how we ought to live and serve God. I am convinced that our work as a congregation is first and foremost to provide a sanctuary to you, to our members, to all of our men, women, and children. This temple begins as a place where we stand together as an extended family, looking out for each other. That is our first line of defense. That's what we must do for each other. That's why we pay dues, right? We pay to count ourselves in, to be included, part of this family, part of this process, this community that seeks to evolve, seeks to grow, seeks to make a difference. There's another reason we do our utmost to be strong and solvent, to be thoughtful and communicative, to support our strong lay leadership. More and more, whenever I speak from the Bima, from the Torah table, I am aware of what feels like darkening skies. And I'm aware of the fact that our role as Reformed Jews is actually to do something as a Jewish community to work for a better, kinder, more just and decent world. We know that not yet can never again be about passivity. It's up to us to deal with the real brokenness we survey around us. We know others feel the same way. As a Jewish community, we believe it to be more than just a good idea. We believe it to be our obligation. Now, to make this more than simply about some philosophical statement only, this comes with real-world complications and commitments. I think there are ways that we respond by saying not yet and then working to change that. One of the ways we've done a number of years is Mitzvah Day. Mitzvah Day is this Sunday. And we need people to sign up. If you've not signed up yet, please go online. You can link from our website. But sign up. One of the troubling things, even though we have a number of projects filled, a couple of the projects that we're still looking for help, both of them have to do with helping our seniors in our greater Boston community. So that we need to send families to Hearth where seniors who are homeless find a meal and shelter. And Olmsted Green. It's not heavy lifting. It's about playing bingo, about serving brunch, about simply going to people who have no family in their lives to let them know they are not surplus people, but that they're human beings. That's our work. We need your help with that. Now, if you want to be outdoors, the city of Newton has given us the challenge of cleaning up one of the parks. I have no idea which park it is. But if you want to be outside, if you've always dreamt of, picking up stuff without having to wear a jumpsuit, then this is a chance to do so. We would invite you to sign up for that. Please do. Also, we will need folks to go to the Boston Food Bank because after collecting all of this food, which either you've brought or will bring in at the end of the day today, it needs to be sorted and shelved. We would love to send a group to actually help sort and shelve the food that we have collected. And if you don't have a plan or project, just come and join us. Sign up online. And what's really great is after Mitzvah Day, at 4 p.m., we're going to have our Erev Sukkot celebration, which the sukkah is going to be built that morning. We hope that you'll come and then join us after the service for what's become a Beth Avodah tradition, the traditional meal of pizza. So we hope that you will come and participate with us in that. So there's a couple of things right there, but there is a third thing I'd like to mention. Last year I came to you with a heavy heart. I told you that unless we got our act together, that we would be forfeiting our obligation to the food bank, the Boston Food Bank, for our annual offering of raisins and salmon. And I agreed with you that it was a horrible combination. But then I reassured you that no one meant to mix it together, but that we need raisins and salmon so it'll go into bags to feed hungry Jewish families. It's hard for us to imagine there are families in the greater Boston area, Jewish families, that cannot afford to make ends meet and to feed their families healthy meals. But it's true. So that's what we have to give. Now, what I was thrilled about is we met our quota really quickly, which is great. Only now we have a reputation. So we got to keep this reputation as opposed to they're going to have to forfeit to, wow, we asked and it happened. Please, let's make it happen again, just like that. A great way to do it that will save you so much sweat, so much labor. Go online, go to Amazon.com, you can go to Target.com. There are lots of places that will do this. Go online if you're a Prime person, even to pay for the shipping. And, not that I'm advertising for Amazon, but you go and you buy a case of salmon, a case of raisins. You pay for it and have it sent here. You don't have to lift a box. You don't have to go shopping. It's kind of like the DoorDash of tzedakah. All you have to do is click the button and it will happen. It will happen. And I hope that you will come through for us as you have in the past. We need your help with this. This is a donation that is expected of us. So it's not really even tzedakah so much as it's doing what our temple stands for and what our name stands for. There's one more thing. Some years ago, at Beth Avodah, we tried to involve our community in community organizing with GBIO as a partner. And for a variety of reasons, it was a failure. This failure, I believe, impeded a commitment to our involvement in the larger community, a larger involvement in issues of social justice. I think it's long past due for us to revisit what our connection is to these burning issues. And so I'm suggesting the following. I'm asking for your help. I would like to ask you, if you are interested, to join me in a series of conversations. It's not a committee. I'm calling it an advisory council. And I want us to get together, and the first part of it is simply a conversation. What are the things that you think matter most, that we should be paying attention to? Is it gun violence? Is it the issue of immigrants and refugees in Europe? What are the causes? Is it racism in America? What are the issues of absolute significance? We can't simply look at them and think, oh, I'm glad someone is taking care of this. We can't ignore these larger issues of social justice. We do so much, but we have not done enough in this realm. And it's time for us to do so. I want to say that Gene Black is a former president of our congregation and has been, I guess the technical word is hawking me to do something about this. And I'm glad to say, Gene, that today is an official ask to the entire congregation. First of all, it's simply about ascertaining what is most important. I understand that we don't necessarily have to go for a Nobel Prize, but we have to do something. And how we do it and what we do will be the subject of our conversations. We'll put together some ideas. We'll present it to our executive committee. But we can't stand by in this new definition of not yet and leave it for somebody else again. So can we see on this Yom Kippur something of what Rosenzweig saw in his synagogue? Open hearts and open souls. Martin Luther King was fond of quoting the abolitionist Theodore Parker, who famously said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And it bends towards honesty, forgiveness, and generosity. The world we live in is not yet the world God meant it to be. It is our task from this moment on to bring about the day when what should be, will be." It's a scary world out there. There's no time to hide or shy away from issues that count. Are we satisfied that we are doing everything we can regarding the pain and injustices we witness, both far from home and much closer? Not yet.
each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it will turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
I know you just want to cheer, right? You just want to like. The end of this part of Yom Kippur is kind of odd. You know, it's a semicolon in the course of the day. We're continuing. But for the time being, we take this moment, we give thanks. This moment we embrace the truth that we embrace the truth that it's both literally, metaphorically, and spiritually time to start walking. So, Gamar Tov, a meaningful, easy fast. Becky Oliver and Heidi Baker, our educators, ask you please don't forget your children who are going to be on the playground even as we speak. So go get them. Family service is at 3 o'clock. Our afternoon service continues at 4, which folds into Yizkor, which folds into Ne'ilah, which folds into the Tekiah Gedolah. Gamar Tov.